Hey guys, what's good? It is September the 27th, 2025. It is Shane's World News Views podcast for this week, going over, like always, mostly world news, the most important world news for the week in the quickest amount of time, and a little bit of sports that I always add at the end of the show. So let's start off. Former United States Chief of Staff who worked under the Biden regime, Jeff Zients. He was having a meeting he was being questioned by the House Oversight Committee, and basically he admitted to Hunter Biden being involved in the pardon discussions. So this is like, all this bullshit, all these, these pardons for Fauci and Schiff and all these people that never were found of doing anything wrong yet. This is what you would pardon somebody for, is if they may have done something wrong, and then you may pardon them. But this dude pardoned, Sleepy Joe pardoned them ahead of time. And meanwhile, did he sign these orders? No. Was it auto-penned? I'm sure it was, and therefore they shouldn't be valid. So any of these people that were pardoned by Sleepy Joe's auto-pen should not, that shouldn't be held valid anymore. But it was admitted by a former, person that worked for Biden, Jeff Zients, that Hunter Biden was involved in these pardon talks. So, not anything big. A lot of people were saying Hunter was running the White House, the imposter White House. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Next up, Governor Gavin Newsom from California. Multiple things, where he had a tweet that came out that said Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day, and people took that as a threat. He also came out and said that ICE agents in California, he basically signed some kind of a state order or something that effective the beginning of 2026, that ICE agents will have to be unmasked when they're on the streets. The Trump administration came out and said, just ignore any of that bullshit. Of course, that wouldn't even take effect until January 2026. But Newsom continues to, try to ploy to become, like the next Democratic candidate for president. And, he's, speaking out of his ass like always. So, but meanwhile, when President Trump goes to California and he's, and he's on the tarmac, Newsom is there to greet him and kiss his ass and bend the knee. So go figure. On to the next. At the Charlie Kirk Memorial, which happened last week in Arizona, which was a great event, there was an armed man that was detained. He was posing as a law enforcement officer, and he was detained outside of the event prior to the event taking place. It just shows all these crazy people at any time, they could try to pop up and, do dumb shit. And, who knows what this guy was doing, but you can't do that, obviously. He was detained. He was arrested. The event itself was great. President Trump spoke, J.D. Vance, the vice president, his wife, Erica Kirk, so many speakers. Elon Musk was there. He had a moment where he went into Trump's press box and sat with him, and they shook hands. And Elon had a tweet come out that said, "For Charlie." Their friendship, I don't think, has ever been as bad as the media thinks it is. I think they've always had an understanding. I think Elon was upset about some things, but it showed that they still are together. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. And it was a great memorial for Charlie. It was long. I think they're saying it was 90 to 100,000 people that attended. It was a great event. And of course, you still have people, this whole Charlie Kirk thing. Did Robinson, was he really the shooter? I see different angles. I've seen different things on video. I'm not going to go over right now until it's confirmed, until, maybe more stuff is looked into that looks like this could have been a situation where, Tyler Robinson, I don't think he is the shooter. I don't think he was the shooter. I think you want to call it an inside job, whatever you want to call it, whoever was involved, all kinds of rumors and Israel. And, look, I'm not saying I back any of it because I don't know, but I do not think that Tyler Robinson was the killer. I think it was a closer shot. I think it was with a smaller gun, not a rifle. There's a lot of things. So we'll see what happens as this uncovers more. I do believe Charlie is dead. There's also a lot of conspiracy people out there that think that this is a military operation and a psyop, and that Charlie is really still alive and he's going to appear again. And no, Charlie Kirk was going to run for president. Charlie Kirk loved interacting with the public more than anything. He wasn't going to take himself out of doing those things for a psyop that would make no sense, because these are things that he wanted to do. I mean, if it was about going, into a witness protection, if he was scared of losing his life, he would have just, quit speaking. There would have been no point of this whole event taking place that happened in Utah, where he got shot and killed. So I don't know, man. Lots of shit out there. Like I said, I do not believe that Tyler Robinson was the shooter. Let's see what else happens going forward involving this whole Charlie Kirk thing. I think I'll have a little bit more Charlie Kirk news as the podcast goes on, the podcast goes on. On to the next. Brigitte Macron, she's the First Lady of France. All the rumors, that people have been accusing, especially Candace Owens, that she's a man. Macron, she showed photo evidence saying that she's definitively a woman. And Candace says, well, let's see all your medical evaluations. Let's see everything, because I don't believe that you're a woman. I think that you're a man. That's what Candace Owens says. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. On to the next. It was announced this week, President Trump, RFK Jr., Dr. Oz, they were all part of a press conference where they were basically stating that Tylenol, it shouldn't be taken by pregnant women, that it could promote the risk of autism in babies. So yeah, I mean, we don't want autism. So anything that can eliminate the potential of that, then that's a great thing. So I would take the advice on this. And I think probably a lot of other additives and things in foods and, things that are in other medicines and stuff like that can cause, bad things to happen with your heart, like say vaccines, the heart issues, medications, additives. I mean, all kinds of shit that's in these products. So let's keep investigating. Let's keep weeding out the bad products, and let's, help people live longer lives, plain and simple, and healthier lives. On to the next. There was a 17-year-old that shot an off-duty firefighter in Washington, D.C., and he's being charged as an adult. Just another clown kid. He was trying to rob this firefighter who was walking down the street, ended up shooting him. Didn't kill the firefighter, but still, bad things, these bad things continue to happen. So hopefully he'll be, held accountable, to the fullest in the law. On to the next. This is a funny thing that the Democrats are saying that Barack Obama and Sleepy Joe Biden should have statues commemorating their whatever at the White House, like that they did good things. These are both corrupted politicians, plain and simple. So they don't deserve statues of anything, okay? There's nothing that they're clowns. They do not deserve statues on the White House premises or anywhere celebrating their legacy, because it's a tarnished, they're both tarnished legacies. And this will be proven as time goes forward that these are both corrupted politicians. No doubt. On to the next. Raja Jackson, who's the son of UFC fighter Rampage Jackson, Quinton Rampage Jackson. This was a few weeks ago, probably more like a month ago. I never reported this, but Raja, there was a wrestling event, a pro wrestling event, and he showed up, and he didn't like that one of the wrestlers, I think he did like a little slap on his head or something when they met, and the wrestler apologized. And then Raja went in the ring, and he was told by like one of the people that were with the show, just go and take it out on this wrestler in the ring. So he basically went in there and he physically assaulted this other wrestler in the ring, and now he was arrested and he's facing felony charges for it. And his dad even said that he needs to learn a lesson, because he just shouldn't have done something as fucking stupid as this. And Raja himself is training for MMA. He's showing up at this wrestling event. He's not a wrestler. He's, why he was even there, I have no idea, because of his daddy's name. Anyway, stupid shit that Roger Jackson did. Unfortunately, Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air on ABC. Jimmy Kimmel just needs to stick by the book, make jokes, but don't create bullshit stories like MAGA being responsible for Charlie Kirk and all this other shit. You're entitled for freedom of speech. That's what this country is. But when you start lying and smearing, that's where it becomes too much. I remember also Senator Cruz, Ted Cruz from Texas, Republican. He's mad at the FCC for even being responsible or being involved for taking Kimmel off of the air. And people are still saying, well, it was the ratings he was suspended for. Some say it was, the things he said about Charlie, like a combination. I mean, look, his contract comes up in January. We'll see what happens. They're probably not going to renew his contract, ABC. Then he'll go do a podcast and talk his shit there. So, yeah, I don't like the guy. He's obviously being funded even more money by whoever to say even more shit, to create more tension in this world, in this country, in the United States. And it's not right. People like him and Colbert, they go too far, and it's stupid. Just have these talk shows, interview your guests, make people forget about politics for a little bit. And these guys don't. They just try to, ignite the fires between the Republicans and the Democratic parties. And it's not right. It's not right at all. On to the next. There's still the talk out. There's still the talk of government lockdown coming up. So, of course, Trump wants to meet with high Democratic officials, to try to come to some sort of an agreement where this doesn't happen. It never seems to happen. They talk shit. They threaten they're going to shut it down. It never gets shut down. So we'll see what happens. On to the next. There was an incident at a Sacramento ABC TV station where a man fired 3 bullets at the TV station building, the ABC building, but nobody was hurt. This guy was arrested, and some people think it's politically motivated. Who knows? On to the next big thing this week, the UN General Assembly in New York, where you're having like all the world leaders meet. And, there were some that weren't there. President Trump, of course, was there the opening day. And, of course, there was all kinds of shit where President Trump and his wife Melania were going up an escalator, and the escalator just happened to stop when they got on it. That could have caused an accident where somebody fell, and people think that it was, somebody was responsible for that. This wasn't just like a malfunction where when they just happened to get on the escalator, it just happened to stop. Give me a fucking break. And then also with President Trump's teleprompter, it wasn't working correctly when he was speaking. So that, it's a fucking joke. And I mean, you have a lot of world leaders there. It's 193 member states are a part of this General Assembly. And, so there were some world leaders not there, like, President Xi and Putin and the Rocket Man. Like, there were certain leaders not there. They send representatives, or they didn't actually attend, but a lot of the presidents of other countries were there, Zelensky and Macron. And so, I mean, anyway, President Trump is not big with this event anyway, but, anyway, he goes, he attends, and, he speaks, and then all this bullshit is happening. So they need to investigate that, see who might have been responsible for, this escalator stopping and, the teleprompter not working, and get these people fucking fired. At the same assembly, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, this clown goes on and says that Trump should be criminally investigated for shooting down drug cartel smuggling boats as they're trying to enter our country to smuggle in drugs when they've been warned not to do it. And this asshole basically was telling United States troops to just ignore President Trump, ignore his orders. Well, his visa was revoked, okay, from the United States. This guy's a clown. He's a clown. And you got to understand, if you're being warned not to come in our country with drugs, no matter who the fuck's on that boat, it deserves to be shot and blown up. If you're being warned, do not come in this country, do not smuggle drugs, and you do, you fuck around and you find out, like they say. So this guy's a clown. On to the next. There's all this shit that was going around about Tom Homan, the border czar, that he accepted FBI money, $50,000, the Trump administration is saying it's a deep state probe and that they basically shut it down. There's nothing to it. That Tom Homan didn't accept any kind of money from the FBI. So, just more shit, more, political bullshit, trying to smear people, for things that they didn't do. So, on to the next. Robert Shillman. He was a top donor of Turning Point USA, and it was reported that he actually stopped funding Turning Point USA a couple of days before Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. And this is another thing where they're saying Charlie Kirk, they wanted him to go even more pro-Israel than he did, and that like this guy like Shillman, he wasn't happy that they weren't going more pro-Israel. I mean, again, there's a lot of things into this. We'll see what happens, but this is a billionaire that supposedly stopped funding or stopped putting money into Turning Point USA. So Ryan Ruth, this is the clown that tried, he attempted an assassination on President Trump, hiding in the bushes at Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach. A few months ago, he basically is fucked. He was found guilty on all counts of, attempting assassination on President Trump, and he will face sentencing in December. And he also, in the court, when this was ruled that he was found guilty, he tried to stab himself in the neck with a pen. So, yeah, not a guy that's mentally well in the head. And hopefully he serves the rest of his life in jail, which a lot of people think he will. On to the next. Chad Mazzell. He's leaving the DOJ as he was the chief of staff. He's leaving the DOJ. So we'll see who replaces him. Brandon Gill. This is a Republican from Texas, congressman. He came out and he said that Ilhan Omar, she should be deported back to Somalia, that she's not even a legal citizen of this country. President Trump was joking and said that he asked the president of Somalia if he would take her back, and he said that he didn't want her back. So, and Ilhan Omar, of course, she's being investigated also, or she should be investigated, but there's all kinds of rumors of her involving fraud, money being funded to her or being given to her from in illegal ways. And how did she make all this money? How did she inherit all this money? Just like a lot of these other politicians. And she says all kinds of nasty shit. And she was like basically laughing about Charlie Kirk dying. And she's a miserable, bad person. She's a horrible person. So she needs to be terminated from Congress. She needs to be kicked out. On to the next. President Trump, he was encouraging Ukraine to basically try to go and take back all their land from Russia in this war. President Trump is just getting frustrated that this war hasn't been totally fixed yet with Russia and Ukraine. He wants it to end. He wants to see, innocent people stop dying. He knows Zelensky is a corrupted person. At the same time, he doesn't want to see innocent people keep dying. He wants to see innocent people, stay alive. And I understand that. So he was kind of throwing jabs at Russia, that the Ukraine can do these things. They could get their land back. They have the military backing. They have the weaponry to continue to take on Russia and possibly win the war and all this stuff. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Zelensky also came out and said that he would possibly consider stepping down from presidency if the war ended. So we'll see what happens. Zelensky, I've given my views weekly. I don't need to keep giving it. He's corrupt to the core. Ukraine, unfortunately, their government is corrupt to the core as of right now. It needs to get cleaner. Need to get better people in there, plain and simple. On to the next. The Trump President Library. It's they're looking at putting this in Miami at some point, next to the Freedom Tower in Miami. It has to be approved by the state of Florida, and Governor DeSantis was talking about it. But that'd be pretty cool to have the Trump Presidential Library eventually, whenever it would open in Miami. So that'd be a cool thing. Fort Lauderdale would be better, but let's see. The Biden administration, all the shit coming out about, how they were, they went to Google and they had Google censor all the people that were speaking out against them. And, of course, that's nothing, no surprise. And Google came out and said basically like the YouTube accounts that were banned, that they're restored. But then I just read something that like Alex Jones and there was a couple others, Nick Fuentes, they did like new YouTube channels, and that those were already taken down after they said that old YouTube accounts that were removed would be restored, that they removed these. So who knows, you know, if they're talking shit over there at Google, if they're not going to really stand by what they're saying. But they did say that the Biden administration basically was pushing them, you know, to censor Republican voices or anybody that was speaking out against the Biden agenda. And that's totally not right. That takes away freedom of speech. So, I mean, it's a joke. There was an incident at a Dallas ICE facility, a shooting. 3 people detained by ICE agents were shot by a man who then killed himself. I don't think any of those 3 people, anything serious with them. But the shooter killed himself, so that's a good thing. He's a scumbag. And these events at these ICE agents, at these ICE facilities with these ICE agents have to stop. There's 157 of 193 member states. With the 157 of 193 member states of the UN General Assembly, are recognizing Palestine as a sovereign state. So, you know, you're going to have people that do not like this, and, you know, you'll have people that do like this. And of course, Palestine, you know, is, you know, a lot of communism and a lot of terrorism going on there. And anyway, I don't agree with it. But on to the next. Will Rosenzweig, U.S. attorney in Miami, he was fired by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. He was basically talking shit on President Trump. He was, I think, posting stuff, you know, all kinds of dumb shit because he doesn't like President Trump. And, you know, in that kind of position, you know, you blatantly just don't do that. And some of the things he was saying, of course, just like everybody else smearing Trump, he was fired for it. And there was a couple of others that have lost their positions that I talked about in these positions the last few weeks for doing the same thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't speak bullshit, especially on the president of the United States. They had the Clinton Global Initiative event this week. This is in New York. It's been going for 20 years, unfortunately, where Bill and Hillary Clinton push their bullshit, you know, narrative to the United States or to the world or whatever. All the bullshit that's talked there, I'm not even going to go over it. I'm just reporting that event took place this week. Hopefully it gets canceled. On to the next big news. James Comey, the former FBI director, he was indicted on 2 counts of making a false statement and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. And he faces up to 5 years maximum charge if convicted. Obviously, Comey was involved in Russiagate. He smeared President Trump. He smeared Mike Flynn. The General Mike Flynn. He's a bad guy. Like Mike Flynn says, he was a bad cop. The guy I'm sure he got paid off like so many of these other people. He's definitely a part of the deep state. A Biden appointed judge, I know, is handling the case. Hopefully, you know, they will find him guilty because these are valid things. Not like all the bullshit that they brought on President Trump, you know, when he got indicted. And of course, that was thrown out. This is valid shit, and James Comey needs to pay the price, along with many others. And President Trump was saying others still need to be held accountable. You know, Obama, Brennan, there's so many. If we go into all these investigations, Letitia James, so many. So on to the next. GOP lawmakers are pushing for a plan to honor Charlie Kirk's on a U.S. coin or multiple U.S. coins. I don't know, but that'd be pretty cool to have Charlie Kirk's face on a U.S. coin. So we'll see what happens with that. There's also still the constant rumors of investigating the Soros family, Alex and George Soros, of funding like all these fucking batshit crazy Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all this shit that's creating more tension and chaos all over the world. These are known Democratic backers. Alex, his son, keeps coming out and saying that there's nothing to this isn't true, blah, blah, blah. But what else are they going to say? And going back to Comey, of course, he says he's innocent. Well, we'll see if you're really innocent, because I don't think anybody believes that shit. Even people that support the Democratic Party, I don't think deep down believe that shit at all, especially with all the evidence that's being shown. So these people, of course, they're going to say they're innocent, but what else are they going to say? They don't want to go to jail. So, but the Soroses, they need to be investigated for sure. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, he's going to have a meeting, I believe, this coming week with admirals and generals, and it's going to be at the Marine base in Quantico, Virginia. So I don't know what it's regarding. Just basically, I'm sure it's going to be, we need to be tougher. This country, we need to be tough, smart and tough in this military. We have the greatest military, like President Trump always says. Weaponry. We need to have tough soldiers, smart soldiers backing this country. And it also came out today that I believe they're sending more military into Portland because of all the shit that's going on there, the rioting and the looting and all this shit. So, like, I'm sure National Guard, will be sent in there. I think that's what President Trump basically said was going to happen. So, that's a good thing. We need to clean it up. President Trump, he signed multiple big executive orders this week. Death for the death penalty in Washington, D.C. This should be in every state if you commit like super heinous crimes, especially if you kill somebody, if not in defense or anything, but like, somebody just going and killing somebody or committing like a super heinous crime. I don't know. It's just severe crimes to be held to the death penalty in Washington, D.C. And that we'll see. It should, like I said, it should happen in every state. And also, he signed an order into the approval of TikTok remaining in the United States. And he also he signed that executive order basically stating that Antifa is a terrorist organization, as they should be classified as. President Trump was at the Ryder Cup this week. He was there with his granddaughter Kai in Farmingdale, New York. So the golfers, like always, they were all happy to see him. And this is another big story. 275 plainclothed FBI agents were embedded in January 6th. The January 6th hoax of 2021 in Washington, D.C., where they said President Trump incited all these riots and all this stuff. 275 plainclothed FBI agents in attendance. And then people say that this wasn't orchestrated. My ass. On to the next. President Trump, he said that he won't allow Israel to annex the West Bank in Palestine. So he's not going to allow them to take it over. President Trump also said he wants to declassify all records of Amelia Earhart. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Her plane crashed in the Pacific Ocean. She disappeared in 1937. They declared her dead in 1939. So there's a lot of I don't know. There's all kinds of conspiracy stuff into how her plane went down, and so we'll see what happens. But he wants he wants all the records declassified. The DOJ has issued a subpoena for Fani Willis. She's of course, the corrupted Fulton County District Attorney, and she was trying to, have President Trump arrested for nothing. He didn't do anything wrong. She's corrupted. They subpoenaed her for her travel records. Of course, like a lot of travel that she did that state money was paying for, and it wasn't for work. It was like her taking vacations and all kinds of shit. So she needs to see the cell. She needs to be in jail. Kash Patel, FBI director, he fired all FBI agents that were photographed at the time kneeling for George Floyd. I believe I read around 20 agents were fired. So nothing wrong with that. Good job by Kash Patel. The Supreme Court voted 6-3 in President Trump's favor that he can continue to freeze $4 billion in foreign aid. Good. This money of the United States does not need to go to any other country, in my opinion, but the United States. And the president of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan, he visited the White House this week, and him and President Trump had a good meeting. And that's a good thing. World leaders talking out future trades and, world peace and all that stuff. So it's a good thing to always have world leaders visit the White House. That's it for world news this week in terms of sports. Basketball, hockey will be starting soon. Football is going. Nothing great to report in football. I'm a Raiders guy, like I always state. They're 1-2. They play the Bears this week. Raiders got to improve. Baseball, we're getting to the nitty-gritty. This is the last weekend of the regular season. The Yankees, my team, they're tied for the American League East lead. The Toronto Blue Jays have the tiebreaker, meaning the Yankees actually have to come at least one game ahead in the division to win it. They can't finish tied, or they would be the wild card team. So we'll see what happens in these last two games. Hopefully the Yankees win both. Toronto loses at least one. That would avoid the Yankees having to play a wild card series. But if the Yankees do have to play the wild card series, they have to play it, and they have to win two more games to get, to advance and eventually, try to win the World Series. So also, Cal Raleigh from the Seattle Mariners hit his 60th home run this week. People continue to lie and say that this was all done as a catcher. 51 of those home runs were hit where he actually caught in the game. The other 9 were hit where he wasn't catching that day, where he was the designated hitter. So he did not hit all 60 home runs as in the catcher position, playing catcher for that game. He hit 51 of the 60. So, and to let you know, Aaron Judge is the best player by far in Major League Baseball, and he will win the MVP again, and Cal Raleigh will not win the MVP, and that's a guarantee. And the Yankees need to keep going. The Raiders, my teams. If I have any other great news, sports news to report, I would, but I don't. So that's it for this week. I'll be back next week with more Shane's World Views and some sports news for you next week. See ya.